What's up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's President Tsai has wrapped up her first day of a state visit to Eswatini. This year marks both 55 years since the two countries formed diplomatic relations and 55 years since what was then Swaziland gained independence from the British. Ed Moon reports from Eswatini's capital of Mbabane.
A special welcome for a special occasion. Taiwan's President Tsai is greeted by the King of Eswatini, Mswati III, on what is her second state visit to the southern African country. After 8 years in the post and with less than a year left in her final term, this could well be Tsai's last trip abroad as president. And she's hoping to use it to show Taiwan can be a reliable partner on a continent where Eswatini is now its only remaining diplomatic ally, in the face of pressure from China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan.
I enjoy the friendship that you offered to us, and I hope this friendship will continue and deepen.
While Tsai's time as head of state is coming to an end, King Mswati has no such concerns. Over his near 4-decade reign, he's already visited Taiwan 18 times. And while the rest of Africa has grown closer to China over the past several decades, attracted to lavish funding for infrastructure projects, the Eswatini royal family has been unmoved by Chinese overtures.
Taiwan is also my home, away from home.
With a population of just over 1 million people, Eswatini, once known as Swaziland, is a small country, especially by African standards. But as far as Taiwan's remaining allies go, it's one of the biggest. And it's in a region where Taipei is keen to maintain a foothold. Recent years have seen Taiwan build relations with the unrecognized nation of Somaliland in the Horn of Africa, although stopping short of official ties. Eswatini remains the country's main window into the continent. Despite the long journey, Tsai is scheduled to stay for just over 2 days, but she'll pack a lot into that time. The two sides have already signed agreements on developing an oil field project here in Eswatini, and tomorrow is the big day. It's 55 years of Eswatini independence, and of course, King Mswati III's 55th birthday. After that, Tsai is set to visit a civic project sponsored by National Taiwan University Hospital, an example of the kind of projects that Taiwan is funding and its few remaining allies. John Su, Ed Moon, in Mbabane, Eswatini, for TaiwanPlus.
Protesters in Taiwan are demanding an end to the release of treated wastewater from Japan's Fukushima into the ocean. On Wednesday, environmental and anti-nuclear groups gathered outside the Japan-Taiwan Exchange Association, calling on Tokyo to stop the release, which began 2 weeks ago. The slightly radioactive water was used to cool the nuclear reactors of the Fukushima power plant, which suffered a meltdown 12 years ago. The Japanese government's actions have been met with strong opposition from neighboring countries, particularly China. The UN's nuclear watchdog has approved the plan, saying the treated wastewater is safe, but protesters say the dumping is wrong.
那我们认为这是非常不公平的，因为等于日本把核灾的责任、核灾事故后续要清除的这些成本转嫁到全球的环境上，甚至让邻国的都要承受到这个成本。
Hong Kong's top court has told the city's government to legally recognize same-sex partnerships. The court ruled on Tuesday that not doing so puts the government in violation of the city's laws. It's called for protecting things like access to hospitals and inheritance for same-sex couples, but stopped short of granting them full marriage rights. The court instead urged an alternative framework for those couples. The ruling follows years of legal battles from activists in the Chinese city.
It is a significant victory which makes clear that Hong Kong law must afford due respect and protection to same-sex couples. This will help families while hurting no one. Also, it makes another important step toward equal love and more harmonious society for all.
To find out more about the ruling and what it means for Hong Kong, our reporter Rick Lauert spoke to Billy Liang, an advocate from Hong Kong, after the court ruling on Tuesday.
Can you tell us a little bit about this ruling in Hong Kong? What rights should same-sex couples there be expecting?
The ruling today is a partial yet significant victory for the LGBTQ community in Hong Kong. The ruling basically says that while it is constitutional to exclude same-sex couples from the institution of marriage, as well as to deny foreign same-sex marriage, registered overseas, the court, by a majority, finds that not providing any alternative framework conferring legal recognition on same-sex marriage is unconstitutional. And so there needs to be, the court does recommend that there needs to be some sort of framework to provide same-sex couple with a sense of legitimacy and to dispel any sense that they belong to an inferior class of persons. But what it means is that, like, you know, the court is in favor of having some sort of civil union or partnership rights, stopping short of granting full marriage equality.
How do you think this ruling reflects attitudes towards LGBTQ people in Hong Kong? And are those attitudes changing?
I think there has been some very encouraging figures that's been published by the universities, done by Hong Kong U and CUHK, which has been, they've done a rolling studies looking at the support of same-sex partnership rights in Hong Kong. On the question on whether Hong Kong will support same-sex marriage, there's seen significant and encouraging improvements. The study that was released a few months ago in May found that 60% of Hong Kongers said they support same-sex marriage, while 23% remain neutral. And this is a drastic improvement from 38% of support in 2013.
Given the current political situation in Hong Kong and the national security law there, which curtails a lot of freedoms, a lot of free speech and protest rights, how much room is there in the city to push for greater civil rights like LGBTQ rights?
I think since the national security law has been put in place, on top of that, there has been the COVID lockdown. We have seen drastic changes to the way people express themselves, particularly in the form of public rally and demonstrations. This is also seen in events such as the Pride parades or Pink Dots or other public events. How that will affect the fight in this narrowing space remains to be seen.
That was Rick Lauert speaking to activist Billy Liang. Myanmar's ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi is being denied outside medical treatment while suffering poor health in prison. That's according to a source close to the matter. The 78-year-old is said to be suffering from swelling in her gums, lightheadedness, and vomiting. But Myanmar's military is reportedly only allowing prison doctors to treat her, promoting concerns about the quality of care she's receiving. Aung San Suu Kyi is facing 27 years of detention after being convicted of corruption and election fraud. She has denied all charges and is appealing them. The Myanmar junta has carried out a brutal crackdown on dissent since it took power in a coup in 2021. Governments around the world have called for Aung San Suu Kyi and other political prisoners to be released. Kenya's capital, Nairobi, is hosting Africa's first climate summit this week. It saw significant pledges towards producing clean energy on the continent on Monday. Despite this, some say other investment options are still needed.
The architecture is set up in a manner that if you borrow, it will be difficult for you to pay. We need a conversation. How do we get concessional funding?
The United Arab Emirates pledged $450 million to develop clean power in Africa by 2030. Germany and the U.S. also promised investments in sustainable development projects there. The talks come ahead of the UN Climate Summit in the UAE in November. Eggs have become the latest subject of dispute in Taiwan's legislature. The decision to import Brazilian eggs has sparked arguments about bird flu and accusations of political favors. John Van Trieste has more.
A batch of 80 million eggs is polarizing lawmakers. The eggs came from Brazil, where bird flu has been declared a health emergency. Members of the opposition Kuomintang, or KMT, have asked whether the government might have held off on declaring Brazil a bird flu zone as a favor to the importer.
怎么这么巧啊？5月20号，人家巴西已经爆发禽流感，你迟到6月28号你才宣布。
For its part, the company handling the supply says the eggs had already left Brazil by the time the outbreak began, and says there's no risk of contamination. One member of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party has questioned the KMT's motives for making an issue out of this shipment.
有厂商愿意 有人脉可以买到蛋的情况底下，但是这是不是就是因为挡人财路？因为后来大家发现，鸡蛋大量进口之后，有些人拿出了囤积的鸡蛋。
As politicians argue, the egg shortage continues to bite. People in Taiwan consume 24 million eggs a day, but domestic production is about 1 million short to meet that demand. Old-fashioned, less efficient hen houses are one reason for the shortfall. In March, the government pledged to subsidize upgrades to more modern facilities.
以一半的方式来补助，那每场不超过450万。那如果要改建成密闭水帘式的，那我们一场是1000万。那另外，针对5万只以上的这些大型的养禽场，那我们提供的是专案农贷2年的利息补贴。
But until this takes off, egg imports, however controversial, will remain the only way the country can meet its needs. James Lin and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Cleanup efforts are continuing after Typhoon Haikui hit Taiwan over the weekend. In Pingtung County, oyster farmers are counting the costs it's had on their industry. Eric Liao reports.
Days after Typhoon Haikui made landfall, the southern county of Pingtung is still reeling from its effects. Inclement weather has stopped tourists from coming, and even those who do make it, they're missing out on a local delicacy, oysters.
下午大概3点左右来到我们店家这边要用餐，结果我们并没有办法去接待这个客人，因为我们已经没有鹅啊可以提供给游客了。
Haikui and Tropical Storm Saula before it have caused major disruptions for local oyster farmers. Production has dropped by up to 40%. Existing stock has already run out, and it'll be weeks before new oysters are ready for harvest.
苏拉台风以及海葵台风的影响，那目前海上的牡蛎明显的有销售，那大概也要2到3周的时间才可以肥满回来。
With the lack of supply, oyster prices have already jumped over 10%. And with demand set to spike for the Mid-Autumn Festival later this month, people may need to shell out more money for their barbecues. Klein Wong and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
A report on the semiconductor industry has found there are tens of thousands of monthly job openings in the sector. The report by one of Taiwan's biggest job hunting platforms, 104 Job Bank, found that an average of 23,000 jobs were available per month in the industry in the second quarter of this year. The report also says that the average salaries in the semiconductor industry saw a year-on-year rise of 3%. IC chip engineers earned the highest average monthly salary at about $3,100. Over 1 million people in Taiwan sought treatment for insomnia last year, but Taiwan's hospitals are running out of resources to help the restless. There's nothing quite like a good night's sleep. But for the 1.5 million Taiwanese who sought treatment for insomnia last year, punching their ticket to dreamland is more frustrating than restful. A common cause of insomnia is sleep apnea, a disorder that disrupts people's breathing while sleeping. Ignoring sleep apnea can lead to cardiovascular diseases, depression, and even dementia. Unfortunately for the restless, only around 60 of Taiwan's hospitals have dedicated sleep treatment centers. And Dr. Ling attributes the shortfall to a lack of sleep technicians around the country. Ling says more funding and benefits are needed to attract people to the job. Otherwise, patients and doctors alike won't be getting any rest. In sports, Taiwan's under-18 baseball team beat Puerto Rico 16-2 on Wednesday at the U18 Baseball World Cup. The game, which was originally scheduled for Tuesday night, was postponed due to rain. On Wednesday morning, Taiwan handed Puerto Rico its only loss in the tournament so far. The team scored 16 runs on 11 hits, triggering the tournament's mercy rule and ending the game in the 5th inning. Taiwan will advance to the next round with a perfect 5-0 record. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally today, we leave you with the images of panda cubs playing on bamboo hammocks at a research base in China. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.